Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow looking absolutely perfect. Forever. No aging, no wrinkles, no tired under eyes, no bad angles. Meanwhile, all the consequences of your life, every bad decision you've ever made, shows up somewhere else that nobody sees. That's basically the picture of Dorian Gray. The story is about hiding your real self. It's about beauty obsession and vanity and public image, all of which is pretty easy for us to relate to in a world that's obsessed with filters and where we're all searchable online and there's that public image to worry about. And not that vanity or caring about your image is bad at all, but what happens when you take it to an extreme? Like that's all you are and that's all you care about. What if becoming beautiful forever destroyed your soul? So the story starts with this really handsome young man, Dorian Gray, and he's that guy that everybody's obsessed with. Men, women, old people, just everybody. Picture him around like 20, 21, college age, and he's an aristocrat too in the 1890s in London. So he has tons of money to spend on the latest fashion, and he has no job, so he just lives for aesthetics. It's like he lives in a photo shoot, and he's Zoolander from that movie. There's a painter called Basil Hallward that meets Dorian, and he says that Dorian is his muse. Just obsessed, okay? But apart from this obsession, which is definitely eroticized, Basil really does care about Dorian, like as a person. And throughout the novel, he represents real affection and authentic human connection. And you know that means that he'll probably end up emotionally destroyed in this story because that's how Gothic novels treat good people. So Basil tells his friend Lord Henry about Dorian, and Lord Henry says that he wants to meet Dorian since he's supposed to be so perfect. For Henry, think about like 25 years old, just a little older than Dorian, still young. And Henry is awful, like completely toxic. You know those people who give horrible advice and they're selfish and they're superficial and just terrible, but they have money and they look like they have their life together, so people just listen to them? That's Lord Henry. He's charismatic, he's witty, well-dressed. Every sentence that comes out of this man's mouth sounds like it belongs in a viral tweet. It sounds cool, but it actually ruins people's lives. He says things like, the only way to get rid of temptation is to yield to it. Which, no, don't do that. Like every time. Can you imagine if you gave in to every single temptation you ever had? You'd probably be in prison. Lord Henry treats morality like it's boring, and he tries to make his selfishness aesthetic and aspirational. That's Lord Henry's entire personality. Anyway, Lord Henry basically tells Dorian that youth is everything. Beauty is power, and pleasure matters more than morality. And aging is the worst thing that can happen to anyone. And Dorian believes him and says, I would give my soul if I could stay young forever and let the portrait age instead. Which, first of all, never say things like that in a Gothic novel. It never ends well because somehow the wish comes true. Dorian starts out sweet. Kind of vain, sure, but, a nice guy. But he's really sucked into Lord Henry's influence and worldview because he sees him as sophisticated and cosmopolitan. And a big part of that influence is thinking that people only have value if they're trendy and young and beautiful, like if they live a life that is somehow above the everyday life of normal people. Dorian meets a young actress and he falls in love with her physical beauty and the fantasy of her, where she's always playing a different part of the stage and it's never real life. He's seeing Sybil Vane through the filter of her performances, not as a real human being. And she falls for him too, because everyone does. And he says he wants to marry her, but the second that she stops performing perfectly, literally the first time that she doesn't do well on stage, he rejects her, like he drops her like a hot potato, and he's so cruel that she commits suicide. And this is when Dorian notices that his portrait looks different, that the expression is kind of cruel and kind of like evil looking. And he connects it to the wish that he made when Basil was painting his portrait, like to what he's looking at, and he realizes that the wish came true and the painting is changing to reflect his soul, like according to his behavior in real time. And it's scary to see your soul right in front of you like that, but it's also kind of a get out of jail free card for him because now he knows that he can do whatever he wants. The portrait becomes a symbol for his guilt, his conscience. That get out of jail free card, though, is a test because he doesn't have to be evil. He could choose to be good, but he takes that opportunity to be like even more vain and even more superficial and selfish than he already was, and eventually violent. After Sybil's death, Dorian fully descends into chaos, and Wilde, the author, intentionally keeps a lot of those scandals vague, which makes them creepier, but there are rumors about corruption and addictions and blackmail. And of course, Dorian still looks perfect and he's still popular, but there are people that are starting to notice his actual behavior and not just his looks. Eventually, Basil confronts Dorian about all the rumors surrounding him, and Basil genuinely wants to help him to be a better person. But when Dorian shows Basil the portrait, and remember, Basil's the one who painted the portrait, so he sees it's different now. Like, it's like evil and grotesque. And Basil is confused and horrified. But Dorian can't stand that someone is seeing him as he really is. And he actually murders his friend, the only person who has truly cared for him in the whole novel. And then he blackmails an old lover, Alan, to help him get rid of the body. Horrible. Near the end, Dorian briefly decides that he wants to become good again, but it's not genuine. He just wants a portrait to look better and to protect his reputation so that he doesn't feel so guilty. When Dorian checks the portrait again, it looks even worse because his goodness was actually just selfish. So he flips out, he snaps, and he stabs the painting. But because the portrait and Dorian are spiritually connected, he kills himself, like stabbing the painting kills him. And the servants later discovered the portrait restored to beauty the way that Basil did it, and a horrifying old dead guy on the floor. In terms of genre, the novel is Gothic fiction, which usually includes dark secrets and hidden rooms and psychological horror and murder and supernatural elements and lots of emotional corruption. So Dorian fits in there pretty well. The motifs we see, of course, are the portrait itself, which is both a motif and the novel's most important symbol, and homosexual or homoerotic male relationships, which help build up to the overall themes of beauty and youth, which raises the questions of like what happens when youth and beauty become more important than who you are as a person, when being right, useful, influential, important, trustworthy, and good are all defined by your popularity and how on trend you are, depending on your time period, of course. And having a normal everyday life, including normal aging, is seen as a failure. And also the theme of like the purpose of art. Victorian England thought that art had to teach you something or make you a better person, like have an agenda. Oscar Wilde thought that art didn't need to have an agenda or a purpose, which was called the aestheticism movement. And it looked down on middle class or popular morality. It just thought that beauty and pleasure were above all that. Let's talk about the author, Oscar Wilde. He lived in the 1800s and he's from Ireland. Very smart and witty and fashionable. But he was gay at a time when homosexuality was considered immoral in Britain and would land you in prison, which is exactly what happened to him. It was a huge scandal. He got married to a woman to try to hide that he was gay, but he still had affairs with men, and he had one particular serious relationship with a young man who was college-aged. And when that man's father found out about it, he vowed to destroy Wilde's career, which he did by having him arrested for having a gay relationship. And in court, the father even helped get high school age boys to lie and say that Wilde had been with them also, like to make Oscar Wilde look worse. Wilde was sent to prison with hard labor where the conditions made him really sick and led to his early death at just the age of 46. So why do we still read Dorian Gray? The Picture of Dorian Gray is haunting because the questions that it deals with are questions that we still deal with today and probably always will. Like how easily fooled we are by beauty and wealth, popularity and trends and fashion, likes and followers. And what is the purpose of art, which in our world isn't just paintings, but includes movies, photography, fashion, and music? Does it have to have an agenda, or can it just be fun or beautiful or entertaining? And also the question of the hypocrisy of what's considered moral or immoral in different time periods. Let me know what you thought of Dorian Gray. I would love to know. And which classic novel you want covered next. And I will see you next time for the next great novel.